Conflicting reports. The mission to secure the Zenturi border outpost was an unequivocal success, according to all official channels. The diplomatic trade route had been re-established, the missing cargo recovered, and not a single casualty reported among the Galactic Coalition forces. Commander Stellright's field report, submitted precisely 86 standard hours after operation completion, was a model of bureaucratic efficiency. Though it did contain one peculiar, seemingly irrelevant detail about a pair of mismatched boots he'd been wearing throughout the mission, one red, one blue, both scuffed beyond recognition, yet somehow integral to his account. Interstellar Revenue Service Representative Ma Blix, however, had a markedly different recollection of events. Absolute poppycock about the boots, she snorted while adjusting her own immaculately pressed uniform, a regulation standard IRS exosuit in gunmetal gray with reinforced shoulder padding designed to intimidate tax evaders across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. Stellright wasn't wearing mismatched boots. He wasn't wearing any footwear at all. Barefoot as a Jovian monk, leaving dirty footprints all over my freshly sanitized ship deck. Claimed it improved his tactical sensation or some such nonsense. Blix paused to straighten her collar, the metallic pins denoting her 27 years of service catching the light. Her meticulous attention to clothing was legendary, she could spot an unauthorized uniform modification from 2 parsecs away. But I can confirm the trade route reopening, she continued. I personally verified and filed the taxation documents for 16 separate merchant vessels within hours of security clearance. What Stellright conveniently omits is that the so-called missing cargo was actually a Class 6 restricted biological specimen that, technically speaking, should have been declared on Forms TX-11B through TX-11F. Multiple counts of smuggling, if you ask me. Both of them are spinning tails denser than a neutron star, interjected Dash Riker, the freelance pilot whose rustbucket transport ship had been commandeered for the mission. Unlike the others, Dash wore what could only be described as a hodgepodge of space fashion disasters, a tattered leather jacket with too many pockets, cargo pants reinforced with mismatched armor plating, and a garish orange vest that seemed to serve no purpose beyond announcing his presence to every hostile entity within visual range. Stellright wore one boot. Just one. And it was neither red nor blue, but a hideous shade of neon green with purple accents. Military surplus from the dismembered merchant wars, if I had to guess. Dash leaned back in his chair, boots, both very much present and accounted for, propped irreverently on the debriefing table. And while we're dismembering the truth here, let's talk about what really happened to the alien merchant. The Coalition's report conveniently glosses over how the poor fellow lost 3 of his 7 appendages during the peaceful negotiation. Not that I particularly cared for the slimy git, mind you, but dismembered seems a far more accurate description than secured trade relations. At this, Blick's eyebrows shot up nearly to her hairline. Dismembered? The word alone would require filing Form VX-290 for violent incident reporting. I documented no such thing. See, this is exactly what I'm talking about, Dash continued, gesturing expansively. You bureaucrats are so worried about your precious paperwork that you completely miss what's happening right under your noses. The clue is in the creature they murdered, or should I say, allegedly murdered. That little scaly beast was worth more than all of us combined on at least 7 black markets across the outer rim. Here we go again with the sensationalism, Blix muttered, though a flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. The 3 sat in the sterile debriefing room, each convinced their version was the truth. But none of them were prepared for what the surveillance footage would reveal. The surveillance footage. A projected hologram flickered to life in the center of the debriefing room, cutting short any further debate. The image showed a muscular human male kneeling in an arid, dusty landscape. His attire consisted of a weathered sleeveless vest over a sweat-stained undershirt, with dusty cargo pants bearing numerous pockets and utility attachments. His hands, encased in fingerless gloves caked with dirt and what appeared to be dried blood, were gently tending to a wounded reptilian creature, a juvenile dragon no larger than a standard-issue Coalition duffel bag. The hatchling's scales were a dull gray, with a bloody gash across its midsection that the man was attempting to clean with a scrap of fabric. Behind them loomed a much larger dragon, its massive wings partially extended in what might have been a protective stance, golden eyes fixed intently on the human. The entire scene was set against the backdrop of a desolate planetoid, twin suns hanging low in an alien sky. The timestamp on this surveillance footage confirms it was taken approximately 72 hours into the operation, noted the AI system responsible for evidence cataloging. Facial recognition confirms with 99.78% certainty that the human is indeed Commander Stellright, despite missing documentation regarding the drastic change in his appearance. Dash snorted. Drastic change? You mean the fact that he's suddenly built like a Martian powerlifter instead of the scrawny pencil pusher we all know? Or the convenient fact that he's somehow befriended a Class 9 restricted species whose mature specimens are known for turning humans into crispy appetizers? The discrepancy is certainly concerning, Blix admitted, her bureaucratic instincts warring with what her eyes were telling her. Commander Stellright's physical assessment from 6 months ago listed him at 68 kilograms, average build. The individual in this footage appears to have gained at least 30 kilograms of muscle mass. The hologram shifted, showing another angle. The larger dragon's head turned toward the camera, revealing scars across its snout and neck, old wounds, healed but still visible. The creature's eyes held an intelligence that made all three observers uncomfortable. There's something else, the AI continued. Analysis of the audio suggests the subject is speaking to both dragons in what appears to be their native language. Linguistic patterns indicate fluency beyond what any human should possess. Dash leaned forward, his usual flippant demeanor replaced by genuine concern. Are we watching the same footage? Because that big lizard behind him? That's not just any dragon. Look at the scarring pattern on its wings, the way it holds its head. That's a Zenturi patriarch, they're supposed to be extinct. Extinct for over 2 centuries, Blix whispered, her face pale. The Coalition's historical records are very clear on this point. The last confirmed Zenturi patriarch was eliminated during the species purification protocol of 2387. The footage continued, showing Stellright carefully lifting the injured hatchling. The massive patriarch lowered its great head, and for a moment that defied all known xenobiology, human and dragon touched foreheads in what could only be described as a gesture of profound mutual respect. This is impossible, Blix breathed. Zenturi dragons are incapable of forming bonds with humans. They're genetically programmed to view us as prey. Unless, Dash said quietly, someone forgot to tell them that. The hologram froze on the image of man and dragon, the twin suns casting long shadows across the barren landscape. In that moment, all three observers realized they weren't just looking at surveillance footage, they were witnessing the birth of something that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. But none of them yet understood the terrible price that had been paid to make it possible. The hidden truth. Access additional surveillance data, Blix commanded, her training overriding her shock. I want to see what happened before this footage. The AI hesitated, an unusual behavior that made all three observers exchange glances. Additional data requires Level 9 clearance. Current authorization insufficient. Override with IRS emergency audit protocols, Blix snapped. Case designation, potential xenobiological tax evasion. New footage materialized, time-stamped 18 hours earlier. The scene showed a small Coalition research station nestled in a rocky outcrop. Rex Stellright, still bearing his normal physique, stood beside a woman with graying hair and kind eyes, Dr. Elena Vasquez, the station's xenobiology specialist. That's his wife, Dash said quietly. She was part of the research team. The footage showed Elena working with several dragon hatchlings in what appeared to be a rehabilitation center. The young dragons were clearly injured, malnourished, their scales dull and lifeless. Elena moved among them with practiced care, administering medicine and speaking in soothing tones. Rex entered the frame, carrying supplies. The couple worked together with easy familiarity, their love evident in every shared glance and gentle touch. One particular hatchling, the same gray-scaled creature from the later footage, seemed especially drawn to Elena. The Zenturi Patriarch arrived 3 days into the mission, the AI narrated as the timestamp advanced. Initial contact was peaceful. Dr. Vasquez had been secretly treating the injured offspring for several months. The massive dragon appeared in the new footage, emerging from the rocky terrain with the regal bearing of its kind. Rather than attacking, it approached cautiously, its golden eyes fixed on the humans caring for its young. Elena was brilliant. Rex's voice came through the audio, though he wasn't visible in the current frame. She figured out that the dragons weren't extinct, they were hiding. The Coalition's purification protocols drove them underground, literally. They've been living in the deep cave systems, slowly dying from radiation poisoning. The footage shifted again, showing Coalition forces arriving at the research station. The timestamp read 6 hours before the peaceful scene with Rex and the dragons. What followed made all 3 observers sick. The Coalition forces, led by Commander Voss, a man known for his strict adherence to xenophobia protocols, stormed the facility. They weren't there for the trade route. They were there to complete what the species purification protocol had started. Elena tried to shield the hatchlings, placing herself between them and the soldiers. Rex fought desperately to protect both his wife and the creatures she'd come to love. But they were outnumbered. The massacre was swift and brutal. Plasma fire filled the air. The hatchlings' cries were cut short one by one. Elena fell defending the gray-scaled infant, her body covering the creature even as life left her eyes. Rex's anguished scream echoed through the surveillance audio as he cradled his wife's lifeless form. The gray hatchling, traumatized and wounded, crawled beneath Elena's protective embrace. The Patriarch witnessed everything, the AI continued emotionlessly. Analysis suggests it had been observing from a distance, waiting to assess human intentions. The massive dragon's arrival at the massacre site was like watching a force of nature unleashed. But instead of the expected rampage, something extraordinary happened. The Patriarch approached Rex, who was still holding Elena's body and the wounded hatchling. Instead of incinerating the human, the ancient creature lowered its great head and touched Rex's forehead. What happened next defied every known law of biology and physics. Energy transfer detected, the AI reported. Unknown mechanism. Subject Stellright's cellular structure begins immediate metamorphosis. Muscular density increases by 300%. Bone density increases by 250%. Neural pathway expansion detected in language and sensory processing centers. It gave him part of itself, Blix whispered in awe. The dragon gave him part of its essence. And in return, Dash added, understanding dawning in his eyes, Rex accepted a debt. A blood debt. The transformation. The surveillance footage continued, showing Rex's transformation in horrifying detail. His body convulsed as alien energy coursed through him, reshaping not just his physical form but something deeper, his very essence. The bonding process, the AI explained with clinical detachment, appears to be a Zenturi survival mechanism. In extreme circumstances, a Patriarch can share its life force with a chosen guardian, creating a hybrid consciousness capable of protecting the species. Rex's screams gradually faded as the transformation completed. When he finally stood, he was no longer entirely human. His eyes held the same golden depth as the Patriarch's, and when he spoke to the dragons, the language flowed from his lips as naturally as breathing. But there's more, Dash said, studying the timestamp. This happened 3 days ago. The official mission reports show him completing diplomatic negotiations during this exact time period. Blix was frantically accessing her files. That's impossible. I have tax documentation from 16 merchant vessels, all signed and verified by Stellright during the supposed bonding period. Unless the Coalition sent someone else, the AI suggested. Facial recognition indicates a 94% match with Coalition operative Marcus Vale, surgically altered to resemble Commander Stellright. The revelation hit like a shockwave. They had a replacement ready. Rex's voice came through the speakers, though he wasn't visible in the current frame. This wasn't a random purification raid. They planned to eliminate Elena's research and replace me with someone who'd never question orders. New footage appeared, showing the fake Stellright conducting negotiations with alien merchants while the real Rex was still bonding with the Patriarch. The imposter wore regulation boots, neither red, blue, nor neon green, and maintained the scrawny physique of the original Rex. They made one mistake, Rex continued, his voice carrying new harmonics that resonated with draconic undertones. They assumed Elena's research was purely academic. They didn't realize she'd already made contact with the Patriarch. They didn't know about the eggs. The surveillance shifted to show hidden chambers deep within the cave system. Dozens of dragon eggs lay in carefully maintained nests, tended by the few remaining adult dragons. Elena's equipment was scattered throughout the cavern, heating elements, nutrient dispensers, medical supplies. She was saving them, Blix whispered. Dr. Vasquez was single-handedly trying to restore the species. And succeeding, Dash added. Look at the dates on those incubation chambers. Some of those eggs are ready to hatch. The Patriarch's deep voice rumbled through the audio, translated by the AI. The small flame speaker promised to help our young ones find skypaths again. Her life debt passes to her nestmate. Rex appeared in frame, no longer recognizable as the mild-mannered researcher he'd once been. His transformation was complete, muscles corded with inhuman strength, movements flowing with predatory grace, eyes that burned with ancient fire. I understand, he replied in perfect Zenturi. Her debt is mine. Their debt is mine. The Patriarch's next words chilled everyone in the debriefing room, then you know what must be done to those who spilled young blood. Rex nodded, lifting the wounded gray hatchling with infinite care. Justice will be served, old one. But first, we save who we can. The footage ended, leaving the three observers in stunned silence. They now understood that the official mission reports were a complete fabrication. The real Rex Stellright had been transformed into something beyond human comprehension, bound by ancient draconic law to exact vengeance for the slaughter of innocents. Where is he now? Blix asked quietly. Before anyone could answer, the lights in the debriefing room flickered. A low rumble echoed through the station's hull, the unmistakable sound of something massive landing on the outer hull. I believe, Dash said, his face pale, we're about to find out. The final reckoning. The station's emergency klaxons wailed as massive claws scraped against the outer hull. Through the viewport, they could see the Patriarch's golden eyes peering in, its ancient gaze fixed on the three humans inside. Station lockdown initiated, the AI announced. Unknown vessel has breached outer perimeter. Security protocols. Belay that, Rex's voice cut through the comm system. I'm not here for them. The airlock cycled open with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Rex Stellright entered the debriefing room, but he was barely recognizable as the man from the original mission files. His transformation was complete, standing nearly 7 feet tall, muscles rippling beneath skin that held a faint draconic shimmer. The gray hatchling perched on his shoulder, its scales now bright and healthy. Commander Stellright, Blix began, her bureaucratic training warring with primal fear. You're in violation of approximately 47 Coalition regulations, including. Elena's dead, Rex said simply, his voice carrying harmonics that made the walls vibrate. So is the research team. So are 12 dragon hatchlings who never got the chance to see Sky. Dash slowly raised his hands. Rex, we didn't know. The reports we filed were based on lies fed to you by the Coalition brass. Rex's golden eyes blazed. But you three aren't my targets. You were used, just like Elena and I were used. Through the viewport, more shapes became visible, adult dragons emerging from the asteroid belt, their wings spread against the starfield. The few survivors of a species that had been systematically hunted to near extinction. The debt must be paid, Rex continued. Ancient law demands it. But justice isn't always about vengeance. He activated a holoprojector, displaying coordinates throughout Coalition space. These are the locations of every hidden dragon nest Elena mapped before she died. 17 colonies, over 300 eggs, waiting to hatch. The Coalition knows about them now. Commander Voss's report was very thorough. Blix felt her blood turn to ice. They're planning another purification sweep. Already begun, Rex confirmed. 3 nests were hit yesterday. The Andorian colony will be next. The hatchling on his shoulder chirped softly, and Rex's expression softened momentarily. But Elena left us one gift. Her research wasn't just about rehabilitation, it was about adaptation. These young ones can survive in environments their ancestors never could. They can thrive on worlds the Coalition considers worthless. You're planning to relocate them, Dash realized. We already are. Rex gestured to the viewport, where more dragons were becoming visible, dozens of them, carrying what appeared to be incubation pods. The Patriarch has called in every favor, awakened every sleeping ancient. They're moving the eggs to sanctuary worlds beyond Coalition reach. That's mass illegal immigration, Blix sputtered. The paperwork alone will never be filed, Rex interrupted, a predatory smile crossing his features. Because officially, this conversation never happened. Officially, Commander Rex Stellright died in a transport accident 3 days ago. The Coalition will receive his personal effects and a very convincing funeral service. The implications hit all 3 observers simultaneously. Rex had orchestrated his own death to protect the dragons. What about the debt? Dash asked. You said justice had to be served. Rex's smile turned cold. Commander Voss and his unit are currently investigating reports of dragon activity in the Kepler sector. They'll find exactly what they're looking for, a patriarch defending its territory. What they won't expect is that this particular patriarch has learned human tactics. Through the comm system, they could hear distant explosions and the terrified screams of Coalition forces encountering something they were completely unprepared for, a dragon with human intelligence and a very personal grudge. The debt is being paid, Rex said quietly. Elena's killers will face the consequences of their choices. But the real victory isn't revenge, it's ensuring the species survives. The gray hatchling nuzzled against Rex's neck, and for a moment, his expression held infinite sadness. I'll never see human space again. The transformation is irreversible. But Elena's dream, giving these creatures a chance at life, that's worth any sacrifice. As Rex turned to leave, Blix called out, "What do we tell the Coalition?" "Tell them the mission was a success," Rex replied without looking back. "The trade route is secure, the cargo was recovered, and there were no casualties among Coalition forces. Everything else is classified above your pay grade." The airlock sealed behind him. Through the viewport, they watched as the dragons began their exodus, ancient beings carrying the future of their species toward distant stars where they could finally be free. 6 months later, the Coalition officially declared the Zenturi dragons extinct. The paperwork was filed with bureaucratic efficiency, the incident reports were sealed, and the galaxy moved on. But on 17 distant worlds, dragon eggs began to hatch under alien suns. And somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, a transformed human watched over them, keeping a promise made to a woman who had believed that love could overcome even the deepest hatred. Elena's debt had been paid in full. The dragons were free. And in the deepest caverns of forgotten worlds, new songs began, ancient draconic lullabies mixed with half-remembered human melodies, sung by creatures who would never forget the small flame speaker who had saved their race. The end.